welcome to Aging Well in America. Today, over 10,000 people turn 65 every day. 5.5 million people are the age of 85 or older. By the year 2050, which isn't all that far from now, 20 million people will be aged 85 or older. Are we ready? Is America ready? There's so much good work going on around the country, around the state, and right here in our own community. And I have with us today one of those people working on getting us ready, and that is Sadie Bolos. Sadie is founder and owner of the Bolos Academy, which does some wonderful work with families of children of aging parents, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well as her own experience with her aging mother. Sadie, welcome so much for coming and joining us today. Start out by giving us the genesis of the Bolos Academy. How did it start?
Well, thank you for asking that, Anne Marie, and thank you for having me here today.
You're welcome.
Bolos Academy is an organization where we really specialize in coaching, and our whole focus was about working with people that are going through transition in life. Different transitions, whether it's you're a college student entering a college for the first time, graduating from college, you're a senior moving into a new season in your life.
Mm-hmm.
If you're newly married, if you've gone through divorce, a loss, a sudden illness. So our focus is really about coaching people through that transition. What does that look like? What do you need now? How are you going to get there? What resources do you need? And how do you cope through that? So we started the Bolos Academy as an impetus to do that. And through the Academy, we do a number of things. We have programs, we do training, we do coaching. But our goal really is to equip people for that transition in their life.
So a lot of what you're talking about, I could imagine people might confuse you with a therapist, right? Mm-hmm. Or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. But you're not that.
No.
And I think what I'm hearing you saying is that when someone goes through a transition like this, they might need more than a therapist or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Even.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what we found when we work with people. So as you put it out there so well, we're not counselors, we're not therapists. We are, our focus really is coaching, training, and equipping people, and really to help them reach a goal. Our tagline is creating the path that's right for you. Creating the path that's right for you right now. What does that look like in your life? How are you going to get there? What do you need? And what action steps. So we're really about creating action steps and accountability and really championing people so they get where they want to go. So one of the examples that I can give you is we had a family who all of a sudden they were taking care of their elderly parents. A huge transition. The parents moved back into their home.
Into the adult children's home?
Into the adult children's home. After
Both of them?
Both
Mother
parents.
and father?
Yes.
Okay.
And of course the parents had been living very well on their own up to a certain point. And then as dementia started setting in and there were some issues with driving and all those things that occur when you start getting older, and you know better than anyone working with that, this population. They moved back into the home, and the adult children thought, no problem, we can handle it. But they really weren't prepared. They weren't prepared for how it changed their life, the expectations, and probably the greatest change for them was accepting what was reasonable for their parents. That's the easiest way for me to say it. The elderly parents were in a certain place, but the children were having a hard time even accepting that their parents were in that place.
You mean the limitations?
The limitations. They wanted to do so much for their parents. They wanted to do more than they really needed to. They were worried about getting them here and getting them there and making sure that they were active all the time. When I sat down and talked with the elderly parents, they were quite happy with their life, the way it was. They didn't need to go to this event and that event. They really didn't need to do as much as the adult children thought they needed to do. So the first thing we started on was helping the adult children understand where the parents were and that they were somewhat comfortable in that place. And
when you say where they were, expand on that a little bit.
So exactly where they were in their lives, how they felt about aging, how they felt about their place in their life, how they felt about having to give up driving and moving back into their adult children's home. So the parents they didn't go kicking and screaming. They were very open to it. Good. And they had recognized in coaching them, because where I started with talking with them saying, how do you see yourself now? What do you need now? What's comfortable for you now? What's reasonable for you now? And after talking to them and then talking to the adult children, there was a disparity. There was a difference in what the adult children thought they needed and what the elderly parents really needed. So what was really nice is they were at peace with where they were.
Oh, that is nice.
And so part of our challenge was getting the adult children to be at peace where the parents were, and then trying to create an environment where everybody could live well. And that's why I love your title, Aging Well in America. And what's interesting is the adult children are aging. I mean, we begin to age from the moment we're born, right?
Yes,
from the moment we're born, we begin aging. So that dichotomy of the adult children still having high school kids in the home, and yet there's the seniors, and the seniors had certain needs, and trying to create some synergism in the home so that there was peace and there was joy and there was respect among all of those parties.
And I'm even thinking of the learning. My mother lived with my family, and my younger daughter was home at the time for about 3 months. And the stories, the interaction, the engagement, we're still telling Grandma Ann stories.
Yes.
She could be difficult, and I understand completely what you're saying about the way the adult child accepts that role and the responsibility. we do it as, even though we don't intend to, as a chore, quite frankly.
Yes.
And frustration, resentment, all kinds of negative feelings start to emerge, which is why I'm thinking your service probably is more needed out there than people might even think. I did end up needing some outside help and some reminders of what is really realistic, what can I do. And by the way, I have three other sisters in the area, and among the four of us, we all had a different expectation and way of helping and spending time with our mom. One of the first things we had to learn was we can't put those expectations on each other. If one can do more than the other, that's fine, and we just have to accept it. So, do you have examples like that? And what I'm wondering what the outcome was.
Yes, actually, I can give you a personal example. My mom, who's now 90 years old, came to live with us part-time. She's living with me 6 months out of the year, and my sister in Dallas 6 months out of the year. And an aha moment came really from my 21-year-old daughter, who basically spoke up at me one day and said, "Mom, just leave her alone. She doesn't want that." And so what I recognized is I was imposing some of my perception was there were certain things my mom needed and I thought she should have. And the truth was she didn't need them and she didn't want them. I wanted them for her. So the biggest, I think the greatest gift we can give ourselves if we're taking care of our elderly parents is to pay attention to what perceptions do we have and what are we imposing on them, and to really get clear on what do they need and ask them. And there may be situations where perhaps they can't always tell you exactly what they need because of what's going on, if they're suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's or some of those things. But in the case with my mom, she's at 90 years old, she's very clear-headed. She's got a lot of clarity, a lot of balance in her life. But I was so concerned about making sure she was visiting this person and going to this activity, and she didn't really want to go. And I was pushing her a little bit until my daughter said, "Mom, just leave her alone." And she's 90 years old, and if she wants to do that, she gets to do that. And she doesn't feel like getting out of bed before noon. She doesn't have to. And if she wants to eat her pie before her eggs in the morning, then leave her alone. And
that's right.
I had to chuckle. And my mom is like that. If you give her a chance to eat pie or any sweet before she has any protein, she's just right there.
Right.
And so that was an aha moment for me to recognize that I need to not impose my what I think she needs on her, but to really get clear on what does she need. And then, as you said earlier, I have siblings. Of course, my sister in Dallas, and I needed to make sure that we weren't comparing. Well, I'm doing this and this for mom, and so we had different roles. My sister takes care of a lot of the medication and the Medicare and the Medicaid types of things. She's got all the paperwork. And so instead of trying to control that, I simply sit back and allow her to do that because she's willing to do it and she's good at it. And so what's my role? Well, my role when she's in Michigan here is to, my mom was born and raised here, so I do my best on making sure she connects with her friends and relatives that are still living, and that she just has a chance to interact with all of us while she's still here. And this year we literally took her to the Renaissance Festival.
Oh my!
And it was really quite interesting. A few times we put her on her, you know, she sat, and we have one of those walkers that has a seat on it.
Sure.
She doesn't like being in a wheelchair.
Right.
So we literally put her on the walker and pulled her through.
Right, right.
And she just had a great time.
Isn't that great?
And every few minutes we would stop, or every so often we would stop and say, so how you doing, Mom? Do you need to rest? And no, I'm good, I'm fine. And it was, you know, she suffers from not remembering things. So even though she had done this years before, it was a brand new experience for her.
Right.
And so we joke around every now and then when she doesn't remember things, instead of getting caught up in her frustration of not remembering. And I think that's another important piece, is just really respecting that and helping them through that, and not getting frustrated when they don't remember things.
Tell us how your academy and your course, if I'm coming to you because I'm now going through this with my parent or grandparent, what can I expect? What's the process and what's the content of the course?
That's a great question. The process is we begin with where you want to end up, where do you want to go. We talk first and foremost, and so we customize it around that. So we talk first and foremost about what's happening now, what's working well, what isn't working, what are some of the biggest challenges, and at the end of the day, what would you like to see happen? So once we find out what that is, then we put together a process and we put together some training and primarily coaching pieces that take you there, and we walk you through that. So I'm working with a family right now, and we have a combination of things. We have an elderly person living there, and we also have a closed head injury that occurred with the family. So we're working on a couple of dynamics, but that's where we started. We started with what's happening now, what's working, what's not working, and what do we want it to look like. And after we've done that, we work with each person individually on what their goals are, what they want to get to, and how do we get there. And then we put actions, so we put some processes in place.
So are we meeting a couple times a week for a certain period of time? Is there a book? I mean, what is the specific content?
There are a couple of ways that we do it. There's a book that we use, and we have a couple of hours of some initial training where we go over some major pieces. And then after that, it's one-on-one coaching. It rolls out into one-on-one coaching, and the coaching is really dependent upon what the need is. So in some cases, it's twice a month. In some cases, in the beginning, it's once a week, and then we you know, wean it down to once every other week, and then once a month, and then every couple of months. So we really start with what the greatest need is, and then we work from there.
Got it. The Bolos Academy, I know, has a very spiritual foundation.
Yes.
And so talk about how you incorporate your spirituality, your personal and that of your clients. I'm making an assumption that not everybody comes to you at the same place in their spirituality.
Yes.
How do you respect that, use it, not use it?
So thank you for asking that. Well, we begin by asking them where they are. We begin by asking them, how do you feel about faith? And you know, we ask them a little bit about their faith. And after we find out what that is, then we ask them what they're comfortable with. So some of my clients, if they tell me, you know what, well, I believe in God, I have faith, I haven't been to church in a long time, I'll ask them, are you comfortable with me praying for you and with you? And if they say yes, then we usually begin every session with prayer. If they say no, then I say, that's fine, I appreciate that, but I want you to know I'll be praying for you. And that's really how we handle it. So if the person is comfortable with prayer, we pray. If they're comfortable with a higher level of that, then we'll even pull out certain scriptures out of the Bible that might speak to them. And also there are many things in the scriptures that speak to everyday living. So we'll take some of those and we'll incorporate that in the coaching. Again, if it's comfortable for the client. If it's not, then we completely respect that, because we're here to create the path that's right for them. And we believe that what we do is a ministry, even though we don't necessarily call it a ministry under the Academy. We do have a separate piece that's actually called ministry, where we're intentional about that, where it's about prayer and it's working with people in their spiritual faith, and that's something separate. But the Academy is really designed towards creating the path that's right for you right now in life. What does that look like, and how do we get you there? So we need to respect each person exactly where they are.
Got it. Okay. Do you have any examples where you can tell us, where a family started and where they ended up, and about how long did it take?
Yes. I have one example where I'll come back to the family that we talked about with the couple moving in, the elderly couple. So that probably took about a 6-month process, not very long. They came in, and we really were working with the adult children.
Was this the husband and wife,
yes,
or were they
husband and
siblings who were,
It was the daughter of the adult parents.
And her husband,
and
because
her
they
husband,
were in,
right.
in their home.
Yes,
Got
correct.
it.
And then they still had a couple of high school children living there. So we started really with, first of all, meeting with the elderly parents and talking about what their needs were, what their expectations were, how they hoped, what it would look like for them, and also what it felt like for them to leave their home. So we started with talking about where they were.
So this was actually before they moved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then we talked with the adult children on what they thought it was going to look like and what their needs were, and what success would look like to them. And again, because I come from the corporate world, I'm always thinking in terms of the word we use is deliverables. I don't use that in the coaching, but that's how I think. What's the outcome? What are the objectives? Because you want to have an end goal of where you want to get to. So we started out with that, and then we worked with them through the transition of moving in. So we had a couple of meetings. In this case, we didn't really do any training. It was all coaching. It was all coaching, and so we put together a little manual, call it a manual. It was more of a coaching guide. Questions, objectives, themes. We actually did this thing called the Wheel of Life, and so the whole thing was about balance in life, and what does balance look like as they all live together. And so we put that together, and we met with them, with the elderly parents before they moved, and with the adult children, and then I met with them a couple of times during the process of the move, and then after the move had taken place, we continued to meet. We met literally twice a month for about 6 months. And at the end of the 6 months, they felt that everything was working extremely well.
Oh, isn't that great?
And I continued to work with the adult children for just a short time thereafter on some goals.
Okay.
Because one of the things that we have to make sure of is that, again, it can be very consuming, and both of the adult children were working, the husband and the wife. So we wanted to make sure that they still maintained their sense of who they were and what their life was about, and they didn't get lost and caught up in taking care of the parents. Even though that's important, they still needed to maintain that balance.
I understand. It's it truly is. And when I first opened Bright Star, and I was writing better about writing a blog at the time, I remember I got a response from a reader who said, taking care of an elderly parent can it blots out the entire horizon of the rest of your life. That's how he put it. And at the time, my mother was still living. My father had just died a year earlier, and I thought, I've never thought of it that way, but oh my God, isn't that what truly happens? I mean, more so, it's so different than raising a child. It's more consuming, and there's not the joy that you have with a child, right, or a grandchild, because it's more. You do it. All of our viewers out there who are participating in this stage in their lives and their parents' lives, they will understand what we're talking about. But yet there can be joy, and there should be. And if we helped ourselves by finding the resources to get assistance in the community, we could have more joy.
Yes, and we have to see what's reasonable. And there were times when I felt consumed, and there were times when I was angry, and there were times when I felt frustrated personally. But I had to step back, and the very thing that I coach is what I had to do. I had to, and isn't that the hardest thing for us, right? For those of us that we call ourselves the experts,
Right.
we know what we're doing, but
Right.
then we have to listen to our own advice.
That's right.
And so I was in the middle, and I'm still in the middle of working on a master's program. And when my mom was visiting, I literally packed her up and took her to class with me. So she sat in a couple of classes in my master's program, and it was kind of interesting. And no one had a problem with me bringing her.
No, of course
she
not.
just sat there, just as sweet as can be. And
Yeah.
I brought a little snack for her that she ate. At one point, though, she was a little loud with the snack, so she had to go. I kind of gave her the high sign, like, "Mom, you need to go sit in the lounge." But she really enjoyed coming.
I'm sure.
And I had to really sit back and decide, all right, at this season in my life, what's realistic for me to do?
Right.
Because, we are called to take care of our parents. I mean, that's really biblical. That's all right if I bring that up, but it's biblical that we're to take care of the elderly. So I had to decide at this season in my life, do I stop going to school, or do I just minimize how much I do? So instead of taking 3 classes, I skinnied it down to 1, and 1 was doable because she's with me for 6 months, and so 1 class was doable, and there were some other things that I needed to not do. And so I worked it out. So you have to really be realistic and look at what can you do, because as you said earlier, if you're taking care of your parents and you're angry and frustrated, that's not a win-win for anybody.
Oh gosh, no.
There isn't quality of life for you.
No.
There isn't quality of life for them. And in the last few years you have with them, you want them to be passionate and joy.
Absolutely.
And you want to have those great memories.
Yes.
And you can create those memories.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit of planning.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of sitting back and figuring it out. And as you said, hiring a coach, someone that can help you, that's not to say that you don't know what you're doing. I mean, hiring a coach or someone to help you through, it's not a negative.
Well, I see it as taking care of yourself.
Yes.
Because that's what we hear. The Alzheimer's Association, every organization, therapy, everyone says you must take care of yourself first. And that means, healthy eating, exercise, but it also means doing things for yourself, with your friends, with your family that may not include your elderly parent. And if that means having somebody else there for a period of time to
Right.
give you that respite care, but you must take care of yourself and you must meet your own needs before you can have that really important, powerful relationship.
Yes, and that's why your services are so well needed. I had caregivers come in to help. I needed that. And one time we were out to dinner, my husband and I, and we were sitting next to this couple, and we were joking around because they had a babysitter for their children, and I said, well, we joked around, we said, well, we have a babysitter for our mom.
Right.
Really a caregiver.
Yeah.
So that's why your services are so well needed as well, because you need to take that time.
Yeah, you need to give yourself permission. We have a few minutes left. I'd like to hear about your background and how what did your career start at? You mentioned you were in the corporate world, and how you came to have the Bolos Academy.
Well, thank you for asking. It's really quite an interesting path. I started out at Wayne State with a degree in criminal justice, criminal law. Started out actually as a police officer and a probation officer. And did
That just blows my mind. So where were you a police officer?
In Detroit, down in Cass Corridor.
No kidding.
Used to ride a motorcycle.
Oh, for heaven's
And
sake.
it was quite an experience. And moved from that into the business world. And how that really segued into that, in the field of law, you're always looking at where do you want to end up. Here's your end goal. Here's where you want to be. I originally was going to go on to law school and become a judge, and then I just decided as I moved along that wasn't the best place for me. So moved from that into business, and how it worked out very well is in law, you're always looking at the end result, and you're always putting together your evidence, planning your case. Well, it's very the same in business. It's very much the same. Or I like to say it should be, where you have your end goal, where do you want to end up, and you work backwards and you put together a methodical, strategic plan on how to get there. So I went from the criminal justice system into business and moved into business where I was doing consulting, training, and coaching for over 20 years, and continued to do that for a number of years. And then In the last 5 years, so many people were losing their jobs, going through major transitions in life, and they were coming to me saying, Sadie, what do I do now? I lost my job. How do I start over? What should I do? And I was working so many volunteer hours doing that on top of my job. I really felt a calling to take what I learned in the corporate world, which is cast a vision, create a plan, implement it, and execute it. So I took that same process and now work with individuals. So that's why, you know, we can do coaching with the elderly. I'm working with college students, as I mentioned earlier, working with middle-aged, new marrieds. As a matter of fact, I just had a judge contact me in the last couple of weeks asking me to put together a program for the 14 to 17-year-olds of the youth of today that are either wards of the state, or they're having difficult times, or they're in foster homes, and they're lost. And he saw the program that we do that's called the True You, and he said, can we rewrite that for the youth? And I said, absolutely. I've actually already done that. So we're doing the same thing. We're coaching them through, what are my gifts, what are my talents, what are my strengths, what does that look like?
And are you meeting with them individually or is it group?
We're doing it in a class.
Okay.
We're doing it over 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then after the 6 weeks, we're doing one-on-one coaching, and then we're doing monthly follow-ups.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
So it's the same process, whether we work with adults or seniors. It's the same process. It's the same information. What are my strengths? What's my passion? What do I love to do? And so that's what I do with the seniors now, too. What's your passion? What do you love to do? They can't do what they used to do.
Sure.
But they still have some passions and desires. So, you know, getting back to the Bolos Academy, that's how I started the Bolos Academy. In the corporate world, my company was Bolos Associates, where I did keynote speaking and training and coaching, and then circled back around now to the Bolos Academy, which is really reaching the general population. So the Bolos Academy is really, we're really trying to go global to reach the general population and helping them create their path for them now.
Well, I wish you the very best of luck. You do some wonderful work. I'm familiar personally with your work, and you really do make a difference.
Well, thank you.
So I wish you the very best.
Thank you.
We've come to the end of another episode of Aging Well in America. Please send your ideas for people or topics that you would like to see covered and interviewed here at the Grosse Pointe War Memorial. Thank you, and we will see you again next time.